out in words of one syllable. So the Déchets legislation is a ring fence around this for the US, but as soon as the EU capitulates, the way the World Trade Organization operates is that if they've got a template in place in the EU, they can then say to every other part of the world, this is what you now have to do. And if you don't do it, we're going to start fining you. Here's a quick summary of Codex goals and objectives, and this is from the National Health Federation. International global harmonization. I love that word, harmonization. There's nothing good about this process. Abolition of organic farming through the abolition of labelling, introduction of GM food and livestock, removal of all ingredient labelling, and restriction of all natural remedies, to include all supplements, herbs, vitamins, minerals, homeopathic remedies, flower remedies, etc., etc. You know, I mean, people don't even realise in this country that the gradualism really kicked in 2 years ago, because there's still little bottles on the shelves that say supplement and vitamins and everything else. But get a bottle that is pre-2005 and get a current bottle and look at the dosage. Look at the dosage. The dosage has been dramatically reduced. The dosages that you can buy today in the UK are basically totally ineffectual. And this is the first step towards abolition. So Codex Alimentarius, I mean, this is basically the equation. Unlabelled GM processed foods, which of course means low nutrients, low minerals, low vitamin values. All vitamin and mineral supplements to be of low dosage, i.e. ineffectual. And herbs and other natural health remedies to be classified as drugs. The Alliance for Natural Health right now is actually fighting a case on behalf of a lady in France who is being, it's a test case obviously, but she is effectively being charged as with equivalent legislation of being a drug dealer because she was growing illegal herbs. Oh, and you know, the connectivity of things. One of the things that I learned in the course of my research is that the picture is never one-dimensional. Never one-dimensional. And here, we have this situation coming down the track again where we're all going to have to switch to these low energy light bulbs. Anybody think that's a great idea? Good. Good. Because if anybody has the HIPS inspector come to their house, if you're thinking of selling your house, all they're concerned about is how many low energy light bulbs you've got in your house. But there's a big problem here. There is a very big problem. Each bulb contains 5 milligrams of mercury. Okay, so the bulbs last a bit longer. But basically these bulbs are going to be used en masse for the next X number of years. What's the disposal mechanism for them? Throw them in the trash. I mean, we haven't heard anything about the way in which these things are supposed to be disposed of, so they'll just go in the trash. And they'll go into landfill. And multiply the number of homes in this country by the number of bulbs that people are discarding over the course of a year. It's going into landfill. Okay, it's not quite as bad as depleted uranium, but it ain't far off in the long term. We're poisoning the frickin' water supply with things that are being sold to us on the basis of, it'll help fight global warming. And that construct of the Club of Rome from 1991. It is going to impact on the quality of food. Even if you did think you were going to be able to fight this. This is the Independent on Sunday from a few weeks ago, when it transpired that the British government has been funding the research of GM crops in this country. And stating that GM potatoes will be grown in this country by 2009. There's some DVDs of a film called The Future of Food, which talks about how Monsanto has been sowing the GM seeds in the west of the US, deliberately choosing the west because the trade winds blow east. So contaminating the farms east of the trial farms. This was from the Director of Corporate Communications from Monsanto, and he said Monsanto should not have to vouch for the safety of biotech food. Our interest is in selling as much of it as possible Ensuring its safety is the job of the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Well, we've seen how the Food and Drug Administration deal with the sale of cloned meat. And who do you think's paying for the Food and Drug Administration? Who do you think pays for their holidays and, you know? This was from the Monsanto in-house newsletter in October the 6th, 2000. Agricultural biotechnology will find a supporter occupying the White House next year, regardless of which candidate wins the election. I mean, hedge your bets. You know, these guys have so much money that they can afford to buy everybody. There's only one organisation that funds more political activity in the US than the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. And they have a Star of David on their flag. Big Pharma, conspiracy facts. Conspiracy facts, corporate crime in the pharmaceutical industry. Aspartame or aspartame, if whichever you prefer. It was actually Searle, not Cirque, I think. But this is the guy I want to talk to you about, because there's a link between aspartame and Tamiflu, which of course is the lifesaver to the latest outbreak of bird flu. You recognise the guy? No? Okay. How about that guy? Donald Rumsfeld. Donald Rumsfeld was the CEO, I think they say it was Searle, not Cirque. He was a CEO of Searle, which is owned by Monsanto. And Searle developed aspartame and obviously wanted to get it in the food chain. Well, the FDA resisted, because obviously there was research that proved that it was causing brain damage in young rats. But that didn't stop the young Donald Rumsfeld. And as soon as Reagan was appointed president, he made sure, because he financed Reagan's campaign, he made sure that Reagan removed the head of the FDA, and a few months later the new head of the FDA approved the use of aspartame in the food chain. So in the US today, there are a number of individual states. Remember I said that state governors have more autonomy than any national leader in Europe. In a number of states, aspartame is banned from drinks that are marketed at under 12s. But of course here, it's pumped into kids. It's sugar-free. But it causes brain cancer in young rats. And Tamiflu. Gilead Pharmaceutical developed Tamiflu. They couldn't do anything with it, so they sold the marketing rights to Roche. And it was just, you know, lost in the morass of drugs that don't go anywhere. But then Donald Rumsfeld was appointed Secretary of State, and all of a sudden, bird flu is the new big danger. And of course, it's still being pumped as the big danger. And I read just yesterday that Alan Johnson, the British Health Secretary, has just authorised the purchase of another 14 million doses of Tamiflu. And you know what? Gilead Pharmaceuticals' own documentation says that Tamiflu only delays the symptoms for between 24 and 48 hours. It's useless. And Alan Johnson says that he's also purchased a whole bunch of antibiotics to deal with those cases where Tamiflu doesn't deal with the symptoms. I mean, this is outrageous. I mean, if something is coming down the line, I can assure you it ain't bird flu. And Tamiflu is going to be a complete waste of time. Comment from the Natural Solutions Foundation, an organisation I'll mention later, and they say Codex Alimentarius is the shrewd vehicle for protecting the pharmaceutical industry. The industry has decided upon an unethical course of action by using deception and deceit in the quest to eliminate natural health products completely. Now, there is an organisation called the National Association of Health Food Stores, who you would think would be natural allies in the fight against the implementation of Codex. Well, there you'd be wrong. Because the National Association of Health Food Stores have been targeted by the pharmaceutical industry, and they have been shown how much greater their profits will be when they start selling synthetics over natural products. You know, this is really a test for everybody, a test in terms of, you know, integrity and ethics. Here's what's going on. The pharmaceutical companies are losing revenue.